To make this very easy Kerfmaker, I'm going to use a piece of poplar that's about 6.5 long. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick and slightly over 2 inches wide. I'm going to use a 1.25 inch drywall screw and a very tiny small piece of maple. It's about 1/4 inches thick by 3/4 by 3/4. Very small, just some little block. But we're going to get this cut real quick and I'll show you what's going on. First thing we're going to do is use these 2 small push sticks to cut this right in the middle. After cutting the length on the table saw, I took one of them, sliced off a little chunk, and put some Titebond glue on it. Just set it in place like so. And I'm going to put a little bit of a spring clamp on there to hold it down. While the glue sets over here, we can start working on the rest of the assembly. We're going to have a screw somewhere over here going up from the bottom. So let's just say, for the sake of it, right there. That's good enough. And then we'll transfer that mark to the top piece, making sure we're snug over here. Don't have to be real perfect. And basically we're going to put the screw here and allow this to travel in a channel, opening and closing. So that's where the channel needs to start. And we want, I don't know, that's sufficient travel. So right in the middle of here, we are going to drill a small hole for the screw to sit in. And right in the middle of this channel, or right in the middle of here, we will make a channel. I'm just going to use a drill bit and make a series of holes and then clean it up with my chisel. So I used a 3/16 drill bit to drill out, start and finish where the little channel is going to be. And I used just a crappy chisel to clean it up real quick. You'll see that below here we're going to put a screw that's going to go through this channel. It's going to go down like so. We're just going to go through this channel and allow movement. And because this material is so small, I do need to drill a hole for the screw to go in, but I don't want to drill too big of a hole because I still want these last couple threads before the head to hold down a little bit. So what I'm going to use is just a brad nail in the drill itself. That's going to drill through this no problem, and it will allow me a nice clean hole that won't split and be nice and tight for the screw to hold on to. Like I said, using a nail to drill with will leave a nice clean hole on both sides. Very, very, very little chip out, and it'll leave the hole nice and tight for the screw to grab a hold of. Now I'm just taking a chisel on an angle and spinning the material to create a nice simple countersink for the screw to sit in. Oftentimes I always reach for the power tools when hand tools will do the job just fine, and oftentimes quicker to use anyway, so nothing fancy. That'll give me a nice countersink for it to sit in. With the countersink drilled, just start threading the screw in. Nice and snug, nice and flush, that'll work. Remember that tiny piece of maple we had? This is actually going to be the knob for that screw. So we're going to use the same nail and the drill to drill out in the end grain a nice spot for the screw to sit in. Ta-da! That's all the assembly. This is very simple. I backed that screw out a little bit and put some Gorilla Glue on it just so it'll have a little bit more holding power. That last thread in the screw is holding all right, but you know, I'm going to get a little bit of use out of this, so I don't want it to start swiveling on me. When I screwed this maple block on, I put a little metal washer underneath it just to distribute the clamping power a little bit more towards the center and allow this to swivel better. This is a very small piece of maple, and it'll do the job just fine. However, if I start wrenching down on this, it's obviously going to split. But that's plenty enough clamping power to secure this top slide piece. So that'll do the job just fine. I've got about 2 inches of travel, and once this glue sets up, I'm going to cut my kerf line right here at the joint, and then without moving it, cut these off nice and square. After that, we'll make a test cut and see how this thing works. Alright, my next step is I've got to make a cut right where these two meet. Right where the sliding piece meets your little stop block, you want to have a saw kerf cut right there. So I'm going to line up my line right here to the dead center of this blade as best as I can and remove material from both sides, leaving only the saw kerf left. And that's essentially what makes everything so accurate. Once that's done, I'm going to cut it like so. Once it's done, I'm going to flip it around like this and just cut both sides even. Because I glued the screw in here, I can't take the screw out, so I'm going to space it off the table with a piece of scrap. And I really don't like the way that this whole setup is by hand, so I'm going to clamp it down before I make the cut. Alright, with it all clamped down, doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. I'm going to remove this stop piece and make my cut. Alright, the cut was a success. It cut both the stop block and the sliding piece. Now without moving anything, because that is exactly the distance I need, I'm just going to flip it end for end and make a cut to even both of these sides up. Alright, now that the Kerfmaker is done, we can put it to the test. What I have, just a little piece of scrap. I milled this down with my my little taper jig, joining jig, whatever I made the other night. So it's nice and square. And so is this. And I want to put a dado in here that will accept this, but this is an oddball size. I've actually no clue what this is. It looks a little bit smaller than a little bit smaller than 3/4, but I didn't measure it, and it doesn't matter because we're going to cut it with this, cut the dado with this regular table saw blade, and all of the sizes are irrelevant. So first thing we do, we loosen up our little Kerfmaker, put the male end of the dadoed piece, the male end in, and we press it tight, closing onto this piece, and just tighten it down. Now I'm just using a little piece of maple and a drywall screw, so I'm not going to tighten this down tremendously, but you can tell it's in there fairly tight. Now what that did is it gave us a spacing over here. By putting the material in here, it gave us a spacing over here, which this distance is the exact distance our piece needs to move with that saw blade to make a perfect dado to match that piece. So I've drawn where I want it, and I'm drawing it on both sides so you can see one side and I can see the other side as I'm working. This is zero clearance with the blade, so I can just line it up where I want my dado to start. And if we're moving, if the piece is going to move to the left, then I want to start with my Kerfmaker referenced off the high point. So when we push all this together with it where it needs to be, I'm just going to clamp this in place. And now I can make my first saw cut on the material. Once I make my first cut, I can rotate this, so now my shorter end is at the fence, and slide it in place, make my second cut, and then back up to where I was. So let's get this all put together and make a demonstration real quick. Alright, so I just cut the material and it's time to test my fit. This is the piece that we measured with, remember, so nice and snug. That's the type of fit we're looking for with this couple piece of scrap jig, and the fit we get, nice and snug. So, you know, the jig works. It's very simple to do, like you've seen me build this. I went with this design as far as the materials, using a drywall screw and an end piece of maple, or screwing into the end grain, just to show you how simple this is, how easy this is to do. You know, you don't need any fancy tools. You can actually buy one of these online. Who would spend money on one of these? I don't know. Easy to make, like I said, and you know, scraps, junk. A drywall screw, a washer, some end grain maple, and poplar. As I was building it like this to show you how easy it is to do. However, I built another one that's a little bit more permanent, a little bit sturdier, that it may last a little longer. I used a toilet bolt that's recessed down here and just a little hex nut. But it doesn't matter if you use something a little bit sturdier like this, something a little bit like this. There's actually a guy in Lumberjocks that made some disposable Kerfmakers. You know, he says they're so easy to make, so he makes them disposable. You know, whatever you want to do. This isn't my idea. Obviously, I found it online. Very handy tool. You can use this with all kinds of stuff. This is basically just measuring the displacement for your fence movement. You could use this with a router, really. Just make sure whatever cutting edge that you're using, you use that cutting edge to make the curve to begin with, and then your straight edges will be fine. So, very handy, very versatile, very cheap, very effective use of scrap materials. So, anyway, I hope you liked it. If you like what you see, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.